Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. What's going on? Not a lot happening in sports these days, huh? What? Actually, there is a lot happening. There's a ton of stuff happening, especially in college football, which is kind of where I want to start today. Just FYI on the interview, I have a huge one today. Big get for me in the baseball world. My interview is with Denard Span. If you remember, former MLB outfielder. He played for the Nationals when he moved Bryce Harper over to left field because he played center because he was that damn good in center. Played a long time with the Minnesota Twins. If you remember that 2009 team that played game 163, then got in. They got swept by the Yankees as usual, what the Yankees do to the Twins. However, you might remember that name for playing a long time in the big leagues, 11 years in the big leagues. Denard Span, my guest. He's a special assistant in the analytics department with the Rays now. So we talk about a lot of the current players as well with the Tampa Bay Rays. But great story from Denard Span. So really enjoyed that interview with him. You guys will too. Right after my 2 cents segment, which begins right now. So Lincoln Riley goes to USC. That was the biggest shock of this past weekend, I have to say. Right after Lincoln Riley loses at Oklahoma to Oklahoma State, hours later, it's announced he's going to be the next Trojans head coach. I don't want to do this, but I have to for a couple notes because I know I have USC people listening. I will sing the fight song. Not sing it, I'll hum it for you for a couple seconds. Da, 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 da. That's all you get. I don't like USC. But I will tell you this, though. This is huge for the Pac-12. Absolutely huge for the Pac-12. And I have lots to get to on Lincoln Riley, so I'll cut to the chase here. There's a lot of layers to this. Let me give you some numbers on Lincoln Riley, just so you know how good he really was at Oklahoma, okay? He's third all-time in his first 5 seasons as a Power 5 coach, meaning he's third all-time in wins in his first 5 seasons at a Power 5 school. He's only behind Chris Peterson, who was at Washington and Boise State, and Jimbo Fisher when he was at Florida State. And also he's tied, coincidentally, with his predecessor, Bob Stoops, who's going to coach them in the bowl game this weekend, or when they get to their bowl game later on, because Bob Stoops is retired. He's still hanging around the program. He's an Oklahoma legend. This was the quietest recruitment of a high-profile coach I think I've ever seen. I know I've only been on this earth for 34 years. I've never seen a big-name coach like that, totally off the radar, hadn't heard his name all season to leave Oklahoma. There was no reason to. These guys got it made there, right? He's 55-11 in his last 5 years. He's dominating the Big 12, has gotten to the college football playoff 3 times. Mind you, he's been blown out 3 times. That may be an issue. I'll get to the SEC in a second. He's got 4 Big 12 titles in 5 years. He's had 2 Heisman winners and number 1 overall picks. You may remember Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. And he also took Jalen Hurts from Alabama, who was benched for weak-armed Tua at Alabama. Nonetheless, Hurts was benched and went to Oklahoma. The quarterback whisperer, Lincoln Riley, gets him right, and he's in the NFL starting for the Eagles. Lincoln Riley can coach some offense, y'all. He really can. He's in the last, he's first in points per game in all of the FBS schools over the last 4 years. The guy puts up points, right? Only problem is his defense is usually lacking. In the Big 12, you can get away with it. In the Pac-12, you can maybe get away with it. But when you go up against the big dogs in the SEC that he would have faced by staying, you can't do that, right? The SEC's got crazy defensive skill level players like Auburn, Alabama, LSU, Florida, Georgia. These schools recruit defense, and that's what they get. Oklahoma doesn't, right? Oklahoma's known for their offensive skill players, which they got a ton of them out there. So I think there's 2 reasons why Lincoln Riley left. One, the LSU and the Florida job were still open when he took that SC job. He could have gone to those 2, but they're in the SEC. Oklahoma and Texas, as you may know, is shortly moving to the SEC conference, right? So he avoided the Southeastern Conference altogether. So the road to get to the college football playoff will not have to go through Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, you name it, all these schools, LSU. He's going to have to go through in the Pac-12, Oregon, a decent Utah team, and maybe Stanford and UCLA figure things out. But in reality, he just has to get through Oregon, and he's got a good look as a West Coast representative. The committee wants it to get ratings. a good look at a college football playoff berth every year from now on. And the other key reason is money, of course. Can't deny that. I'll give you a third reason. He's been recruiting in California even when he was at Oklahoma. The best thing for USC about this, you get to keep the recruits from California in California. That has been the problem with USC and UCLA for that matter. They're losing recruits to Oregon, to Texas, to Florida, to Alabama. Bryce Young is the quarterback for Alabama. He's a SoCal kid. So the big recruit for Oklahoma just decommitted, Malachi Nelson, the quarterback. He's top-rated quarterback in the class, or one of the top 5. He is now decommitted from Oklahoma and going to follow, guess who, Lincoln Riley to USC. This program will turn around very quickly. And by the way, SC's schedule next year, they play Rice, Fresno State, and then the Pac-12. Easy schedule next year. This thing's going to get turned around quickly. I know there's a lot of hype about this, but let's be real. This is a splash move by the Trojans. Yeah, I just think this is a crazy. I can't believe they got this done. Honestly, like I said, the quietest recruitment of a high-profile coach I've ever seen. What a move by SC. They had to, right? They haven't found the next successor to Pete Carroll in that era. USC has one Pac-12 championship or conference title in the last 13 years. Okay, in the Pac-12, you can't win championships. The tradition is there. Everything is there. Now, you can also remember this. Nowadays, recruiting and the kids don't care about tradition that much anymore, right? It's where's the best coach who's going to feature me and I'm going to play, and who is going to develop me to get me to the NFL. So I think he's going to recruit a ton of guys to show his resume of I got Heismans and first rounders and first overall picks, and you can come play for me and we're going to dominate the West Coast. And that's exactly what's going to happen. So I'm predicting that Lincoln Riley is going to turn this around in very short order. Let me get to Brian Kelly. As you may have seen, he chose to go to LSU, leaving Notre Dame high and dry right before a big bowl game that they're going to be in, just like he did years ago to Cincinnati when he took the Notre Dame job. So this is not new. I hate it for the kids there at Notre Dame. They're not a title contender, but they're a really good team. But they sell these kids on, oh, making it. You're gonna in the bowl game. This is what I'm playing for, man. You're coming here for the long term, and then the coach bails right whenever they want. It's not the coach's fault, kinda, but it's more the system that sucks. But anyway, big move for Brian Kelly to get out of the cold weather, academically influenced Notre Dame, and you get to now go to where the athletes are, which is LSU. 3 coaches have won titles, separate coaches have won titles at LSU before. Okay, it can be done. They are in the conversation. They just won one 2 years ago. So this is a high-level program, top 5 job in the country. And Brian Kelly, if you can do it at Notre Dame with those high standards of academics in cold weather, man, if he can get those recruits now in the Southeast to go to LSU, whew, it's a hotbed down there. He could change the landscape now. But just like I mentioned with Lincoln Riley making the smart move to get out of the SEC, Brian Kelly coming from an independent Notre Dame, they get to schedule whoever they want. They have a private TV contract with NBC. Nobody else has that. He had it made up in Notre Dame. Let's be real. But he got paid a lot of money to go to LSU. And now you have to go through the gauntlet of Saban, Kirby Smart, all the new coaches that are coming to the SEC and those powerhouse programs. But LSU is one of them. So I think he'll be able to do well if, like I said, you can recruit kids to Notre Dame, you can recruit kids to LSU, and all the athletes are down there. So every man has his price, and it was the right time for Brian Kelly to be there. Notre Dame has a ceiling, right? There's only really so much you can do at Notre Dame. This isn't the Lou Holtz era. This isn't back in the day with, Nebraska was good. This is not that. There are bigger programs that have easier academic standards, and LSU's probably one of them with a ton of talent. It's a recruiting hotbed down there. He may not have to leave the state of Louisiana. So anyway, huge moves in college football. I know there's a lot of MLB free agency happening right now. If I'm being honest, I'm not sure why the Dodgers and Angels are sitting out right now. Like, I know the Angels got Noah Syndergaard and they signed Michael Lorenzen, another pitcher, but they had really no splash moves, right? I know they signed Trout to a long-term deal. They signed Rendon to a long-term deal. Ohtani's going to want big money. I get that. But for the Angels that are in desperate need of pitching, they've kind of sat on the sidelines, as usual, for big, high-priced pitchers. They just haven't gone after it. As far as the Dodgers go, I trust the front office. I really do. They usually make the right moves. You lose Seager and you lose Joe Kelly. and you lose, I'm blanking on the name right now. You lose Scherzer, right? You lose Scherzer. The Mets overpaid for what? I mean, whatever. He's 37 years old, 3 years, 130 million is a lot for a 37-year-old. But you lose Scherzer, right? Now, do you overpay for Kershaw? Do you bring Kenley Jansen back? I don't know. It's a little shaky for pitching in the Dodgers organization right now. I know they have a great farm system. Like I said, I trust the front office of the Dodgers, but they're kind of just hanging back right now. So hopefully they're waiting and there's some moves to be made. I don't know, but we might go through a collective bargaining agreement lockout now with MLB. A lot of stuff happening, but my main points today were on USC football and LSU football, getting the two big names, shaking up the landscape of college football. So let me know your thoughts on that. Hit me up at Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can email me if you would like. I don't get enough emails from you guys. I don't hear enough feedback. So hit me up, Too Tall Sports Podcast at gmail.com, or hit me up on Instagram, like I said, at Too Tall Sports Podcast. I'm on Twitter at Too Tall Sports. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm everywhere. So hit me up at Too Tall Sports, and we'll chat it up. So anyway, I hope you enjoy my interview with Denard Span. It's really great. And I always love to hear your feedback. So thank you very much. And let's get to the interview. What's going on? Welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. Glad to have you in today. My interview this is a big one today, guys. Big get today. My interview is with former MLB outfielder Denard Span. If you remember, he played for the Twins. He played for the Giants, Rays, Mariners, Washington Nationals. Long MLB career. Played 17 years total, 6 in the minors, 11 in the big leagues. So Denard Span is my guest, former MLB outfielder. Great dude, great story. He's got a foundation, the Denard Span Foundation, which deals with single parent households and helping them get the resources they need. So everything is really important to him about that foundation. So DenardSpanFoundation.com, I think it's .org possibly. Anyway, check it out on social media. I'll post the links in the interview below. But huge interview today. So happy about this one. Really great guy. So you guys are going to enjoy this story about Dinard. As always, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. Don't forget to check out my YouTube channel where I post all the interviews where you can watch us, me and my guest for the day. Watch the interviews on YouTube. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. You'll find us there. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. If you haven't already, please do so. Love to hear the feedback and anything you guys can put on my social channels. Love it. I really appreciate all the listeners and subscribers. So thank you for all that. On the audio side, it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, but especially on Apple. If you haven't done this already, on the main Apple Too Tall Sports Podcast page, scroll down, hit the 5 stars. I'd really appreciate it if you haven't done that already. A lot of you have. I think we have 74 ratings. I'd love to get to 100 5-star ratings. Of course, if I'm delivering 5-star content, which I think I am, but hey, it's up to you guys. At very worst, even if you don't like it, hit the 5-star. It doesn't hurt you. It takes 2 seconds. That's on Apple Podcasts. Also leave a review below the stars if you could as well, if you have time to let everybody know how much you like the show. Spotify, I mentioned, you can listen there. Apple Music, Google Play, Pandora, we're on. So anywhere you get your podcast, just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast and you can find the show. We update episodes every Thursday morning, usually 5 or 6 a.m. on Thursdays. We'll have a show. So check it out. Let me know what you think. Love to hear the feedback. You can hit me up at Too Tall Sports Podcast. And hope you enjoy my episode with Denard Span. All right, welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest is a former Major League Baseball player. He spent parts of 11 seasons with the Twins, Nationals, Giants, Rays, and Mariners. He is now a special assistant in baseball operations for the Tampa Bay Rays, and he's here to talk about his career and story and also his foundation, the Denard Span Foundation. He is Denard Span. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. I appreciate you having me. Looking forward to this. I know we've been connecting for about a week now. And so, yeah, just happy to be here.
Definitely, man. Glad to have you. It's great. Great to get a former big leaguer story. And you played for a long time. So you definitely have seen it all for the most part, so which is really cool. I do want to give a quick shout out to J, Mike, and X at Extraordinary Athletes, just to say thank you for setting this up. So thanks to them. And we'll start with kind of what you're doing now, and then we'll go into your career. As I mentioned, you worked with the Tampa Bay Rays in baseball ops as a special assistant. So what's it like being on the other side of the business, not playing anymore, but being kind of behind the scenes a little bit?
It is the weirdest thing ever. I got to be honest with you. Being on the other side of the locker room, I just got done finishing my first spring training as a staff member, if you will.
Yeah.
And walking in the locker room half of those days, like I wanted to make a right towards the players' locker room.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just, it's different. It's taking some getting used to for myself, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been a learning experience for me, and I get an opportunity to pour back into players and still be around the game that I love so much.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. You get to and give back all that knowledge that you gained over the years. Speaking of the Rays, just as far as this year goes, I mean, they've been incredible the last few years. What have you liked seeing about the players or the talent that they have or the way they run the organization? What is it about the Rays that makes them so good?
I think it's a few things. I think the Rays, when you really look at how the roster is set up, in my opinion, it's no offense to anybody that's on the team, but
Sure.
It's a group of guys that aren't like superstars, right?
Yeah.
These are guys that probably were overlooked, whether in the draft process by other organizations, like the Rays do a good job, and do a good job at picking guys up from non-tenders and releases and obviously trades as well. But I just think they do a really good job at putting the right type of personalities and the right type of guys that have a certain chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one part of it. Another part of it is the Rays. I think they're not afraid to take a step outside of the box, right? And with their analytics and just constructing a team. And so I just think the Rays obviously have been a team over the last half decade where they've competed at a high level against the Yankees and the Red Sox with a third or 2/3 less of a payroll. And I think a lot of that goes into how they develop players, just how they scout, and once again just the analytics and the unorthodox ideas and things that this organization does.
Yeah, and Kevin Cash just won Manager of the Year for the AL, so they got a lot of good things going over there. I wanted to go back to your upbringing a little bit before we get to your baseball career. Your foundation is based on single parent households, and you grew up in that situation with your mom. So what was it like for you growing up playing sports at a young age, having her and yourself just kind of without more of the dad to always have to lean on in sports?
It was, it was, at times it was difficult, not having a father figure,
yeah,
to be around and support me and show me pointers of how to, do things. So that from that aspect, it was difficult. But what I am thankful of with as far as my mom, like she loves sports. Sports was always on our TV. My mom, anybody that knows her, like she is the most competitive person to this day. Like she hates losing anything. And so even though I didn't have a father figure around, I had the work ethic of my mom being a single mother. I had that chip on my shoulder, because I didn't have a father, growing up. And a big part of me always wanted to, show my dad one day, how good I was going to be. My dad was still in the picture, so I don't want to take like too many shots at him, or not a shot at all at him. But it bothered me that my parents weren't around.
Yeah.
Or together,
well,
I should say.
You definitely showed him that's for sure. And speaking of quite an athlete that you were a hell of a football player from what I saw, and you had offers to play football as well in college. Tell us about at that point in your athletic career, maybe later in high school, junior, senior year, how much were you considering playing college football?
I was considering playing football up until, I would say, my senior year for sure.
Okay.
It wasn't until after after my junior year for sure, where I was like, I knew baseball was number one, but I still wanted to play football at the college level. And I had an offer to go to University of South Florida, which is here in Tampa. And once I got drafted in the first round, obviously that all went out the window. But yeah, football was probably more important to me up until about 11th, end of my 11th grade year.
Okay.
So football, being in Florida, football is number one.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
What position did you play in football?
I was a wide receiver.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
Not a big guy, so I'm thankful I went the baseball route.
Yeah. You got to use those skills in the outfield, so you still got to, catch some balls. You did end up getting drafted 20th overall in the first round of the 2002 MLB draft by the Minnesota Twins. What do you remember about that process and that day, and then, ultimately deciding to sign and go the baseball route?
That process, starting my senior year, was like, it was crazy, man. It was a whirlwind.
Yeah.
I remember, my first game of the preseason of my senior year, there probably was about 40 scouts gathered around, the cage in our dugout, watching my every move. And so it was a lot of fun, but at the same time, it was just like, man, like it was like something I had seen on a movie, and it was a lot to deal with at times. And I had to find ways to like slow myself down that season. A lot of times I would try to do too much to try to put on a show for those scouts, but
right.
Overall, it was a fun process. Me and my family, got an opportunity to just experience, even with the college recruitment, that was a fun experience, taking my recruit trips. So from that, obviously unbelievable time. And then getting drafted in June, right after, probably about a week after I graduated high school. Just the best feeling in the world, a dream come true, something that I had been working for my entire life. So it was a special moment at our house. It was myself, my mom, and my brother. And I remember just, crying like a baby.
For sure, man. It's a lot of stuff. You're talking about stressful when you get scouts and all over you, and they're calling you, how will you sign for this? Will you sign for this? All that stuff. Like I'm sure I can imagine.
And it was a big game. A lot of, I didn't even talk about the agents. Different agents trying to, come in and swoop me away from somebody that I had already committed to. And,
right.
This agent saying he could do a better job than this guy. And you've been through the process.
Yeah.
So, agents telling you different things. And it just was a lot of stress, but, for me to finally hear my name, it was, just a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
It felt really good.
Definitely, man. No, I totally agree with that. As far as, like I started my minor league career at 21 out of college. You started when you were still a teenager. So what was it like for you to go into an environment with, you're a first round pick, grown men, they got and mostly probably in the beginning were college kids, but they got, some of these guys got families and you're away from home now. So what was it like for you being one of the young guys in the minors?
I think that's when it hit me that I was in pro ball.
Yeah.
Because I remember walking into the spring training locker room, which you've been there.
Yeah.
Right? When it's like everybody's in one locker room, right?
Yes.
You got the 18-year-olds with the 30-year-old guys in there.
Yeah.
So, you look across for me, I looked across the locker room, and you got guys with hair on their back. And I'm like, I'm coming out of high school, I'm not even shaving, right? I haven't even started shaving my beard yet. And so, it just was, it was a lot, but this is what I had signed up for. And I had no idea, what I was getting myself into. I thought I did, but there's nothing that can prepare anybody for pro ball unless you had a father or, an uncle or somebody close to you that that can prep you for that.
Right.
But, I took it with a grain of salt and went in there with the mindset of, I'm here to learn, I'm here to get better, and I understand that this is going to be a long process.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely the right mindset. I often ask a lot of minor leaguers because we've all played in random cities and stadiums, and some of them are awesome and some of them are terrible. So if you remember any of the minor league cities or stadiums you played in that you loved, and maybe some of the worst ones you've ever been to.
I don't know why Johnson City, Tennessee, is coming to mind in the Appalachian League.
Okay.
When I was there, they had like I'm bad at like dimensions, but I want to say like a 10-foot steep hill going up right field. And that was
kind of like Houston had that thing in the outfield.
Yes, but it was in right field, and so it was obviously like whose decision was it to put this dimension in the stadium?
Right.
Whose idea was it? So I don't know why that stands out to me. Favorite minor league stadium. Oh my goodness.
Or city, whichever place you enjoyed playing in.
Oh my goodness. I played all the leagues I played in weren't that great. I gotta be honest with you. I mean, I went from the Appalachian League to the Midwest League to the Florida State League to the Eastern League and the International League. International League there's not too many great cities.
Yeah, I think the PCL is better. Louisville, I've heard Louisville is awesome.
Louisville is probably one of the better ones.
Yeah.
So let's say Louisville.
Okay, just curious. Yeah. And then speaking of like the difference between, I always like to ask guys that made it to the big leagues, the difference between like a high level minor leaguer, AA, AAA guy versus guys that can stick in the big leagues. What do you think are the differences between guys that just can't, or they can't stay even if they get called up?
In my opinion, when I'm even talking to like younger players, I always tell them the difference between a minor leaguer and a big leaguer has nothing to do with like overall talent. You know what I mean? Like when I was in rookie ball, the guys were throwing 95, right? But they didn't know where the heck it was going though.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's about who is the sharpest, who can do it consistently. Yeah. Right. At the big league level, the difference between a big league pitcher and a minor league pitcher is a big league pitcher can pinpoint all 3 or 4 of his pitches at any given count at any given location. Right. And from an offensive standpoint, a hitter, I believe a big league hitter has a game plan, a certain game plan, and he's going to stick to that more times than not. He's not going to let the pitcher, dictate to that. So ultimately, I would say a big leaguer knows who they are, right, versus a minor league player.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Just, I don't know, I want to ask follow-up just because you mentioned that. When you're, like, as far as your approach to hitting, did you have, like, you would try to eliminate one half of the plate or always trying to eliminate pitches? What do you think, and I know it evolves over time, obviously, but, like, what was some of the things that helped your approach at the plate?
I would say always, for me, I was a leadoff hitter. My first at bat, it always belonged to my team. So as a leadoff hitter, I felt like that was my job, was to try to draw as many pitches as I could out of that starting pitcher. Second was obviously to try to get on base by any means necessary.
Yeah.
But if I could get 5 pitches out of that pitcher and make an out, I felt like my job was done. I came back to the dugout. And obviously all of my teammates got a chance to see what the movements of different pitches were, but I was also able to give information on, this pitch is doing this pitch is doing that. So, I mean, that's not so much, I mean, I guess that is approach, but that's my first bat. And then after that, it was like, you know what, depending upon the situation, just understanding the game, the flow of the game. If there's somebody in scoring position, like, I'm looking early in the count, I'm looking for my pitch, something that's in my hot zone, something where I can do some damage, right? And then obviously you get to 2 strikes, so you're getting a little bit of a defensive count. Then you shorten up, or, you just try to see the ball a little bit deeper.
Right.
But I think that for me, the biggest one, like I said, in the offensive count, making sure like this is something that I didn't put together or interpret or put together until towards the end of my career, was when I'm in a 3-1 or 2-1 count, make sure I get the pitch that I know I can do damage with.
Yeah.
If the pitcher spots up on the outside corner, that's not my pitch. Like, be okay with, spitting on that, and it's still 2-2, or now it's, 3-2, and, you live to fight another day, versus giving in to people like you.
Right. It always seems like you get your wisdom later and when you really need it, right? Like when you should have.
It was like my maybe third to last year when
of course.
I finally like really understood that.
Yeah, no, I believe it. I want to go a little ahead to now 2008 spring training. You are competing with Carlos Gomez, who's now you are competing with him for center field. And you didn't break camp with the big league club, but not too long after, you did get the call on April 6th to make your debut of 2008. What do you remember about your big league debut?
I remember I didn't get a hit. That's about it, to be honest with you. It was so like, it's such a blur to me. I really don't remember much, because it was like everything was in fast forward.
Right.
Obviously, was excited. I actually remember more about my second game, because I did get my first hit. Okay. But it just seemed like, it just wasn't, the nostalgia of it was not as, great, because now it's my second game. But yeah, I don't remember much of my first game, but I remember, getting the actual phone call from my AAA manager around 10:30, 11 o'clock after a game. We were in Richmond, Virginia, and, the manager never calls or reaches out that late after a game. So I had a feeling that he was calling me for a reason, but he told me, meet me down in the lobby. I got to tell you something, or whatever. I can't remember how he said it, but I remember, going down the elevator and, think it's like I honestly, like, in denial. I'm like, this isn't it,
Yeah.
Every minor league player, like, when you look at the major leagues, you look at it like it's like this myth, like it's not real. There's, for me, that's how I was. And so I was like, there's no way this is it. Like, this isn't it. Like, maybe, something happened to, I don't know. Maybe he's telling me that I'm getting benched tomorrow. And I remember getting to the lobby, and the elevator doors opening, and my manager standing, right there waiting for me to get off the elevator. And he looked at me and just said, "Son, you're going to the big leagues." And I remember, almost like feeling like dropping to losing all of the energy in my body, right? And I literally fell into his arms, and definitely started crying, and it just was, just a dream come true, another surreal feeling. Kind of felt like the day I got drafted.
Yeah.
It had been six long years of ups and downs. I dealt with some injuries, and so yeah, it was awesome. It was an awesome feeling to just get that call for the first time.
For sure. And it's not, and yeah, you had a typical minor league experience. It's not like you were a 1 or 2 years in the minors and you flew through the system and then you got called up. That is not normal for people. So you got to experience the grind.
Yeah, I had to grind, man. It was a grind. And so even in my new role with the Rays, I think that's the perspective that I bring is I grinded through, 6 years in minor leagues, and I also played 11 years in the big leagues. So, nothing came easy for me from the day I got drafted to the last game that I played.
Right. No, yeah, which is great. It makes it all the more better now that you've been able to experience all that. I did want to talk about the 2009 Minnesota Twins, arguably like some of the best names in baseball the last 20 years. So I want to, just for nostalgia's sake, I gotta run through some names here. So guys like Jason Kubel, Michael Kadire, Joe Mauer, Justin Morneau, Joe Nathan, Orlando Cabrera, Nick Punto, SoCal guy, shout out, and Delman Young, of course. All these dudes, and you. What do you remember about, I'll read a couple more things. Joe Mauer was MVP that year, Gold Glove, everything. Joe Nathan had 47 saves, franchise record. 4 of the guys I mentioned had 90 plus RBIs. That was an unbelievable team. What do you remember about the 2009 season?
I remember just going into that season that every year being in the Minnesota Twins organization, we were always the underdog.
Yes.
At that time, the White Sox they were like the top dog, the New York Yankees of our division. and we were just kind of like a afterthought type team. We had lost Torrey Hunter, I think the year before, and Johan Santana, right? So even though we still had a lot of talent, I think we had a lot of like sleeper talent, if you will. And we just were a scrappy team. Like other than Mao or Morneau, like everybody else was scrappy, and everybody else played the game the right way. And it just was a fun group of guys, man. Like all those names you just said, like when I like really think about it, it's like, yeah, we really had a squad. Like, but nobody else saw that until towards the end of the season, right? And it just was a fun year with a fun group of guys. And we had that game 163 against Detroit was an unbelievable game. Another game that like I don't even like remember half the game because it was just a lot of adrenaline and just a lot of back and forth. So, but just overall, definitely one of my top 3 like teams that I've been a part of in my career for sure.
Yeah, and the 163, just for those who don't know that he's referring to, is you guys had a tiebreaker with the Detroit Tigers for the division, and you had to play a game 163. And I think I had to read the Wikipedia because I forgot. Alexi Casilla had the hit, and then Carlos Gomez scored. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. One of my good buddies is a huge Twins fan, so he was reminding me about all this stuff. So
that was a crazy game, man. It was back and forth. There was a couple times where I thought for sure we were about to lose, and vice versa. There's a couple times where I thought for sure we were about to win, and somebody would get doubled off, or somebody would get thrown out at home plate. So it was just a lot of emotions, but definitely an all-time favorite game for me.
Yeah, definitely. And then, of course, you guys run into the Yankees, who eventually won the World Series that year in 2009. But I looked this up because it always seems like the Yankees had the Twins number. 6 times since 2003 that the Yankees have knocked the Twins out of the playoffs. Obviously they had great players and they won the World Series that year, but what was it about the Yankees that you guys just could not get over the hump against them?
I don't know, man. I don't want to admit to like maybe what the obvious made us,
Oh, I see. Yes, that's true.
But I don't know, man. I think that era of Yankees, like that was still like the Yankees back then. Like it wasn't the new baby, bombers that we have now. You had Jeter. He wasn't. I'm trying to think. He was still. These guys were still, I would say, considered in their prime. You still had the Jeters. You had the A-Rod was there. Cano was at second base. Teixeira was at first base. Posada was catching. So they had the pedigree of champions, and it always stuck with me. I remember we had a lead one game, and we were going into about I think the 7th or 8th inning, and we had a 2-run lead or 2 or 3-run lead, something like that. But I just remember like looking over like at their dugout. Like I'm very observative, and I remember just watching them, and like nobody was panicked over there. And that always just stuck out to me. And then, of course, the next thing they come and take the lead and end up winning the game. Rivera comes in the game and lights out.
Yeah. All right. So in the 2010 season, you signed a 5-year deal, which seemingly gave you some job security. And then two years later, the business of baseball happens and you were traded to the Nationals. What was going through your mind at that time? Did you think, not that they maybe betrayed you, but you definitely maybe didn't think you'd get traded that soon into a 5-year contract?
Definitely caught me off guard.
Yeah.
When I signed that 5-year deal, I thought for sure I would be there for at least 4 of those years, right?
Yeah.
And I think after year 1, I started hearing my name in trade discussions, and then the following year I got traded. So it definitely caught me off guard. Minnesota, I had been there for over 10 years. But you know what? At the end of the day, it was honestly it was a good thing for me personally. Going over to Washington was something that I think I needed at that point in my career, and I had a really good time there. It was a really great organization, and it was a great time.
Yeah, and right after Bryce Harper won the Rookie of the Year in 2012, he moved over to left field so you could play center. You were definitely one of the better defensive center fielders in the game, and I've seen you in other interviews say that maybe you didn't get the respect that you thought you deserved. So tell us about your approach on defense mentally and just kind of the way you went about playing the position.
Yeah, defense was my bread and butter. I knew that was what was going to keep me in the lineup every single day. I always told myself I'm not going to be able to get a hit every single day, but I know I can bring my glove and save my pitchers every single day. So defense was, my number one priority. I took a lot of pride in it, from my preparation, from my technique, working in batting practice, shagging balls, working on my footwork. My defense, I took that very seriously.
Yeah, no, it definitely can keep you on the field there. Who are some of maybe the guys that you modeled your game after, or where you took, kind of notes from that stuck with you during your career as far as defensively?
I would say Torrey Hunter. Growing up in the Twins organization, he was that guy. He had won a lot of Gold Gloves with the Twins, and as a minor league ball player, like he was the guy that every outfielder wanted to be like and mirror their game after. So as a professional player, it was him. Before I got into professional baseball, it was guys like Kenny Lofton and Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah, all the lefties, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Griffey was my guy too, man. He was unbelievable.
I don't think I've met too many people where Griffey was not their favorite player from like our generation.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and he did everything. Like he's. You could argue. I don't know if you put him in the GOAT conversation, but he's definitely up there.
In my generation, for sure. Yes. Yeah. Like I didn't see what Willie Mays play.
Right.
I didn't see even Pete Rose and some of these other guys play.
Right.
But I did, obviously I watched him and Barry Bonds. It'd be a toss-up between those two.
That's usually who, I agree. Yeah. PEDs or not, Barry's definitely up there still. Let's see. Over the next few years, you started to bounce around a little bit, Giants, Rays, Mariners. At what point did you know it was maybe time to walk away and you had enough of baseball and it wasn't worth it for you to continue any longer?
It wasn't until my last season or the year I didn't play.
Yeah.
2018 obviously was my last year. I knew that I was at the end of my career by my age, and I wasn't playing as much, but I still, in my humble opinion, still felt like I was playing at a competitive clip, and good enough to still be on at least half the Major League Baseball teams, right?
Yeah.
And so, after 2018, I came home and I thought for sure, like I'm playing 2019. It wasn't even a question in my head if I was not going to play. I prepared like every other off season that I had prepared for, and that off season, just the offers that came my way were very underwhelming. And for me, I think at that time in my life where I was at, I just got married 2 years prior to that. Had my son was a 1.5, I think, at the time, or just turned a little bit over 1, and my life was different. Like baseball had always been number one in my life, but at this point in my life, it was not. And in order for me to continue playing, I knew that I was going to have to sacrifice time with my new number one, which was my family.
Right.
And when none of the offers came close to what I felt like I was worth, I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, you're worth what people will pay for." Not in my case, because for me it was like I don't want to say I don't need this, but it was time. It just was time for me to move on. You know Sure. what I mean? Once other teams didn't value me the same way I value myself, and I similar to how what we talked about earlier before we got on, I didn't want to be one of those guys that was hanging on, and so that played into it as well. But it was just time for me to give my family all of me.
Sure. No, totally respectable decision there. Just to wrap up your career on the field, besides game 163, any other favorite moments that stick out to you during your career, or games that you were a part of, or cool moments, anything like that, besides when you guys made that crazy run in 09?
Yeah, I don't know why. 2014 season sticks out to me when I was in Washington. That was my second year there, and we ended up winning the division. So as a team, like, I feel like we had a really successful year. I never got out of the first round with any of the teams that I played for. So that was probably like my biggest accomplishment, was making it to the first round as a collective team.
Right.
But just for that, I don't know, that year was special for me because that was like the first successful year that I'd had away from the Minnesota Twins organization. I got off to a slow start to that season, the first half, and the second half I played really well to just to turn my season around. I would say obviously that year, 2013, I had a 29 game hit streak that was pretty special.
Yeah.
And then in 2008, my rookie year, there was a game late in September against the White Sox that I hit a game-tying triple. I think we were down by 5 or 6 runs, and I can watch that. I can watch that play unlimited times, and every time I watch it, I get the same reaction or the same feeling within me of just like juice, pumped up, and just fired up to the point where how fired up you get, like when you basically it makes you cry.
Yeah.
That's when I watch this play, that's what it does to me. So that was probably that one play is probably one of my favorite plays of my career.
I did see that highlight where you hit it. It was a big moment. You hit a triple. Was that a regular season game or was it playoff?
It was a regular season game. It had a lot of weight on that game.
Got it. Okay.
Because actually in 2008 we played a game 163 as well.
That's right. And you guys
we lost to the White Sox that year.
Yes.
But that was a game where it was a big game. I think they were either we were tied with them late in September, or they were up by a game or two and we were trying to catch them. It was a big game.
Yeah, that was a competitive division in that era with the Tigers.
I think Cleveland was pretty good. Kansas City wasn't good back then.
No, not then.
They hadn't got good yet.
Yeah. Now that you brought up a lot of these things, now more questions keep coming up. Real quick, I want to ask you about just playing with Bryce Harper. So he just won his MVP. What do you remember about playing with him and just the raw talent that you saw, maybe other things you noticed when you got there that we don't see?
There's no question how talented, skilled he was. The biggest, I don't want to say negative, but like the biggest thing was that he was just so young. Like he was literally like 20, 21 years old.
Yeah.
So I think that the biggest thing I remember was that like he had, like, from a physical standpoint on the field, he was like, he belonged there, but from a mental standpoint, he wasn't ready, like, in my opinion, from the standpoint of not mentally able to play the game, but just like things off the field.
Like maturity wise.
Maturity, just like a feel for certain things. He hadn't gone through nothing. You know what I mean? Everybody else on the team had spent 4 or 5 years in the minors and then 4 or 5 years in the big leagues. And people had kids and families, and like this kid, he's 20 years old. So it just was a disconnect from that standpoint. But other than that, we all knew that we were witnessing, a Hall of Famer, even at 19, 20, and that the ceiling for him was as high as any player that I've probably ever played with, to be honest with you.
Yeah. The
things he was doing at 20, it was like, only guys that were like 30 were doing that. You know what I mean? And so, I'll probably tell my kids he was probably the best player I played with, or one of the best players I played with.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up, just because he signed a huge contract today, a guy on the team that you're working for now, the Rays, Wander Franco, signed a huge 12-year, $223 million deal today. What's for those that don't get to watch him that often, what do you make of him, and what do you think he's going to be moving forward?
I think for him, he's the type of guy that has that desire to want to be great as well. He's similar to like a Bryce Harper. Like, these guys are 19, 20 years old, and even though they're young and not fully mature, but you can tell these guys are different. Like, these guys from a young age made a decision that they want to be great. And same thing that I saw in Bryce, I see the same thing in Wander Franco. Like, he really wants to be, remembered as like a Hall of Famer type player. He's not here to just be average, right? He's 20 years old. And, I from what I've seen to this point, like, I think that he's only going to continue to get better. His work ethic is unmatched. And, I mean, he played 70 games, but I think in those 70 games as a 20-year-old, I think we all saw enough to know that he's going to be a special player.
Yeah. How about another, now that I'm just rattling off names, how about Randy Arozarena, man? That guy is the spark plug of this team, like, other than Brett Phillips, who's like, the inspirational fun guy. But that guy, when Randy gets going, man, it changes the Rays dynamic. What do you think about him?
Yeah, he's you talking about another special talent, a guy that is a plus runner, plus arm, and light tower power. Like, he has the ability, like, he has every single tool, you know. And, he was a guy that, I remember even when we made the trade for him in 2019 in spring training, like, he wasn't even supposed to make the team. Or 2020, I should say. I think that was his first year with us. And I remember watching him in the spring training game. I'm like, who is this guy? I think he was literally like a throw-in trade, or like a part of a minor trade. I'm like, this guy is the best player on our team today at the spring training game. And we obviously saw what he did, during the postseason in 2020.
Yeah.
He's just electric, man. Like, he's strong as heck, and he just does it all, man.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'll stop asking you about players now. I did want to give you a chance to talk about your foundation, the Denard Span Foundation. Tell us what it's about, and also how we can help or donate, or however it works.
Yeah, so we talked about it a little bit about my upbringing, growing up in a single mother home, and so that's where the inspiration comes from. My mom, I love her to death, and just her strength, her courage, raising myself and my brother, and now being married and having 2 kids of my own with the wife. I had no idea how my mom was able to do the things that she was able to do, along with, so many other single parents that are in our community. And so I probably say maybe it's been about 10 years that I've been doing charitable things, but over the last 5 years or so, it became a foundation. And over the last 3 years, we have started a program where we help families into transportation, and transportation, education, and grocery program. And so obviously this is very near and dear to my heart, and this is something that me and my wife, this is like our God's work. This is our way to use our platforms that God gave us. My wife was a professional athlete as well. She played hockey.
Okay.
And this is our way to just give back and help people that grew up similar to the way I did.
That's awesome, man. Where can we find information on it, or website or social media or anything like that?
Yes, you can go to the website is at DenardSpanFoundation.org. Twitter, it's at Denard Span Foundation, and same thing on Instagram.
Okay. Awesome. We'll definitely have to check that out, and congrats on the foundation. I know you've been doing it for a while, but it's awesome that you're doing it. So I'm sure you're making a huge difference for people, which is great. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, definitely. Thank you. I really appreciate the time today. It was great to have you on. Thank you for all the stories and opinions. It's great. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to do with the Rays now on the other side of baseball, not playing anymore. So congrats and good luck on everything.
I appreciate it, man. And good luck with you as well. And I hope that you just continue to stay on the same path that you're on and continue to get better. And hopefully we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, man, definitely. Thank you.
All right, brother.
All right. Appreciate it.